Okay, well, we can get right into Texas. I think you guys are aware of Texas. I don't know that I need to discuss much about them. Everybody knows who they are and where they're at right now. So whatever questions you guys have for me about the game, I'm ready to roll.
Kevin Henry returns to the field on Saturday. When you looked at film, what did you see from him in that little opportunity that he was needed because of Malcolm's injury?
He's doing just fine. He feels better now. He practiced most of last week, should practice. I can't imagine he won't practice full this week. It's nice to get him back. We went a couple weeks there where we were somewhat limited depth-wise on defense and feel better about our situation now.
Yesterday, what do you guys feel about Texas so far?
Same as they've always been. Defense, they're big and strong and fast and can run. Offensively, the quarterback's considerably better than he has been, in my opinion. They got big, tall receivers. They want to throw the ball down the field. Just from what they've done this year, they have changed, in my opinion. They're throwing the ball much more than they ever have been. Traditionally, when they came in the league a few years ago with Coach, they were rushing the ball and more of a power team. I don't see that now. I see more of a team that's throwing the ball down the field.
So they're throwing the ball more and Ellinger's playing better. Those two things go together, or are they mutually exclusive?
Both of those things are correct. I mean, that's me. I don't know what they're doing or what his reads are. I just know that he's much more productive than he was in the past, and he's you hear people talk about his throwing. I don't see any issues with his throwing. I think he throws pretty good.
You see better accuracy, a better spiral, all that stuff, or how would you describe it?
I see him as a better throwing quarterback. He's in game for him? I don't know, 20, something like that. So he's in my history at that position. He's 3 or 4 games into the game's probably slowed down for him, and you can tell he's a pretty good college quarterback.
One general look back at the Tulsa game. It'd been great if the second quarter hadn't happened, but it did. And as a result, your team had to respond. You had to come up with the adjustments at halftime. Is your team better for having dealt with that in that particular game? Or would it have been better just to continue after the first quarter and just run? Because some lessons learned pay off later.
Sure. I don't think there's ever a question that if you get pushed or get behind, have to rally, being on the road, all those things, get hot, get fatigued, that if you battle back, it should make you a little bit better team. I can't see any reason it shouldn't. I don't know that anybody ever really knows for sure, but I would have to lean that way versus the other.
Mike, you took Texas the same as always, but for 10 years they were looking between Colt McCoy and Ellinger. They were looking for a quarterback and never really found one. They clearly found one now. So how much of a difference has that made in the Texas football program and the success level they've had?
Well, what I was talking about earlier is they're still all big, strong, and fast and can run. They're all 4- and 5-star players now. And the difference is that Ellinger, in my opinion, is more comfortable and he's playing well and he's throwing the ball really accurate. That's what I see up to this point compared to a year ago when he was still relatively a young quarterback.
See growth out of the Texas program as well under Tom?
I don't know. I mean, obviously they're playing better. They're ranked, whatever they're ranked in the country, so they're doing well. The internal side of it, I don't have any idea.
Mike, you have a 5-game win streak in Austin in front of such a large and hostile environment. How do you keep your players kind of level-headed going into these games?
Well, it's the same for us each week. We get that question, big game, regular game, conference game, non-conference game. Our approach has to be the same. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, in our opinion, is trying to keep them focused on the task at hand. There's other distractions going on more so than ever in society today, so try to get better every day and try to play better every week.
Coach, did you expect Devin Harper to play against Texas?
I hope so.
How impressed were you by the Big 12 last week? A bunch of teams going on the road. Everybody's playing Power 5 teams, it looked like. And a lot of them scored some major upsets.
I've said it every year. People talk about one conference or the other. I think that you take in my opinion, you have 6 or 7 teams a year that have an extremely high talent level, then have a lot of money in the organization and their athletic department, and they kind of work in a different area. And the difference now is you can take those 7 or 8, 9 teams through about 50, throw them all together, and anybody can win the game based on focus, injuries, turning the football over, things like that. That's why college football's stock is going through the roof. Everybody likes to watch it every week because you never know what's going to happen. And I would say this league's going to be as competitive as anybody in the country.
Gary Patterson just told me on the Big 12 call that he said everybody thinks this conference isn't any good. And then he clarified and said, you guys, meaning I guess media. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are still doubting the Big 12?
I don't have any idea. I don't keep up with that, so I really don't have a good gauge on that. I mean, I'm not sure. I just go off of, one, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. 2, I just go off bowl games, and I know what happens. So people say what they're going to say. We're ultimately going to play them all right. In this league we play, and then we get to go play bowl games going down the road.
Mike, you said Saturday that Spencer encountered a little difficulty, and it was a matter of sort of getting him settled back in, I think, at one point. Could you address the importance of that for a young guy going through a situation where he's got sort of the bullets flying, for the first time, really get back on track, and how important that is for a quarterback?
It's fairly common with competitive athletes. They go through that. Mason used to get frustrated at times. Most guys, Josh Fields, would get frustrated. So they're competitive. They want to have success. Sometimes early in a quarterback's career, in my opinion, the game moves really fast for them. As they mature, it looks like where Ellinger is right now, the game slows down for them. And so Spencer's game hasn't slowed down yet, and it won't for another 10 games, in my opinion. He stays healthy and continues to work and improve. It should start slowing down for him about this time next year. So they want everything to happen. They want to score every play. They get impatient. And when they get frustrated when they compete, and that's really what happened. So we got him calmed down, and he went back out and played well. But I see that. I've seen that forever with young quarterbacks.
Mike, is there a way can you overstate the importance of Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace then as you got a quarterback that's trying to get
Supporting
settled?
cast is huge for a young quarterback. We all know that. I mean, if you go out with an immature or young offensive line and you get beat around a little bit, or you don't have skill to go to on the perimeter, it makes it even more difficult, and then they get frustrated even more. So it helps that you have guys out there that can help him. He just needs to stay in his world. He needs to play his game and distribute the ball based on what our coaches think's best with our offensive schemes, and he'll be fine.
What is your role to follow up and become in a situation like that? What do you say to him to help get him back where he needs to be?
Oh, I just tell him the truth. I just grab him, put my arm around him, say, hey, just relax. It's okay. I mean, it's all good. You need to compete, play hard, be durable, be tough. It'll all come back around. Just relax. And he did. He calmed down. His breathing calmed down, and he was fine.
Was it like that? You went to, if I'm not mistaken, you went to both Norman and Lincoln your first year at OSU, right? 86. I think you guys were at both places.
Yes. Yeah, because when we went to Lincoln, I think it was 10 degrees and sleet and ice, and those guys up there that were on some really good natural supplements. When I came up to the line, I'll never forget, they were wearing you remember they used to wear those jerseys with the big holes in them back in the day? And they were half shirts, and I was like the guy on Christmas Story, because I was cold. I was only $165, and I walked up the defensive line, and they didn't even have undershirts on. They had just their pads and their jersey, so I remember that clearly, yes.
So how did you get through that process for you? You must have had a process of your own to sort of manage.
I was surrounded by great players, which helped, and I just did what they told me. And I knew that they took the guy out in front of me for throwing interceptions, and so I knew not to throw an interception. I mean, that's how I handled it.
Weekly offensive line question against Oregon State. Terrific grade. Last week, I think you said kind of average, but it looked like watching it, the offensive line bounced back. They had a really good day on Saturday. What did you?
They were in the middle of the row from Oregon State and McNeese. Oregon State was really good, and McNeese was average, and they were good. They were in that in the middle of those two games. So they need to stay in their world, and they'll continue to get a little bit better each week. Their effort's good. I like their intensity and their willingness to chase the ball and get with Chuba. You know, Chuba helps, right? I mean, Chuba's rolling pretty good. He's we want to try to keep him healthy. I think we gave it to him 32 times Saturday. Would prefer not to do that again, but if we have to, we will. He wants the ball, and so he's held up. This will be a good challenge for him this week and for the offensive line. These guys are going to be, they're physical. They can run. So hopefully he can continue on and have good games like he's had up to this point.
You guys on the defensive line battled through a few injuries. What does that look like this week? Do you know anything about getting anybody back or where you're at?
Not till tomorrow. I won't know much. But I think we're in pretty good shape. We didn't have any injuries in this last game.
Where do you think is the sweet spot of number of rushes per game you want Chuba to get?
20 to 25, somewhere in that area.
Curious, last year you said you wanted to get Justice 14-ish touches per game. Why did Chuba gets more? I'm curious. You're
different body. Completely different body. Sure. One guy's $185 and one guy's 210.
Week one, you talked about how Tyler Lacey has more of a focus this season. So 3 weeks into the season, how have you felt that's played out on the field?
He's done much better. He was actually our defensive player of the game. And I joked with him. He was immature last year at times, and I would have to chew on him pretty good when he was on the scout team. And he made a good transition in the off season. He's working harder, getting better. He's got a long ways to go, but he has a good frame. His strength level's coming up. His intensity is considerably more than it was. Now he was redshirting, but he's getting better. If he continues, things work out well for him. If this year, next year, he should be a pretty good player.
It's like Mason Rudolph just got his big break. Ben Roethlisberger's out for the season. Your thoughts on how he played yesterday and what?
I did not see anything. I only know what Chris Deal put in front of me. His statistics. I didn't see one clip. I did talk to him, and I know that he was excited. And from what I understand, he played pretty well in the circumstances. And now it's his job with Ben's elbow obviously being injured. So. I just know he's excited, and I would expect that he's going to be very prepared to play as well as he can.
He's going to have success?
Do I? Yes.
Chuba, can you just talk about how he responded from the previous game where he fumbled and had his workload kind of reduced because of that, and how he reacted?
He's done well. As I said last week, he's very serious about football at this time. He made a transition in February. When we got back from the bowl game, I saw a completely different person on the field and off the field, and he's been that way. I met with him. He came by and saw me this morning, and he understands, and he's very intelligent. He can take coaching, and it's pretty clear cut around here what our goals are. We try to stay as close as possible to him, and he knows that he needs to protect the football for him, for us, and for his career. And I think he understands that, and I thought he responded pretty well. Each week it'll get tougher. There's wear and tear on his body at that position. Teams we play, when we get into conference play, it gets more difficult to move the ball and score points. And so it'll be interesting to watch him as he transitions through conference play. But up to this point, he's been a good player for us.
How happy are you with finding the next guy coming in behind him when he needs a break? Are you pretty pleased with that?
Well, we got a couple guys that are giving him a little bit of a break, but they need to. LD needs to run. He's chopping his feet, looking around. He needs to run. That's his strength. He's fast, and he's not as comfortable, in my opinion, as what Chuba is right now. I'm not making a comparison. I'm just saying Chuba is going and rolling. He's not sitting around waiting. LD's chopping a little bit. He needs to run. He should be performing better than he is, and I think he will. He's just a little unsure right now. We need him to stick his foot in the ground and go north.
Mike, you only had 4 receivers catch a pass last week and a lot of targets to Tylen. Do you emphasize more trying to spread the ball out to take some pressure off of Tylen?
Defense determines where we go with the ball. We can't make that choice. This has been going on for us for 10 years. We don't have any idea what we're going to get. If they want to play 2-on-1 over the top, got to go to the other guy. If they don't, then you take the single. If it's zone, determine on where they drop in the zones is where we go with the ball. So we don't really play as much in a role in that as the defense does.
Seem pretty optimistic about getting Des Jackson more involved towards the end of fall camp, and still haven't seen him. Is there any updates on his status?
Hopefully he'll be out there this week.
Mike, the narrative for a long time was blowing leads to Texas. Played well, gave it away. Now, over the last decade, you're dominating Texas. What all happened to make you get on the right side of this series?
I think Texas is always going to have really good players. Some of those leads we have were against Vince Young, and in the second half, he turned into Superman pretty much everywhere in the country, not even just against us. I was just my boys were watching one of those shows the other day, 30 for 30 or something. I was watching them in that championship game. He took it over against SC. That had something to do with it. I guess the other side of it, we just got better. We started to end up with some really, really good skill players here. I'm hoping that we were tough internally in our offensive and defensive front, and that helped us to finish games.
What's it meant for the program to have that kind of sustained success against Texas?
I mean, we live in a society today where people want instant gratification and success in all areas. Some may not be as important to others, but it's good to win, and we work extremely hard, just like other college football programs, and so you want your players to enjoy some success, and I think that it helps the overall feel of the organization.
Was there a point when you guys kind of viewed that as sort of a benchmark that you were trying to, as you were climbing the ladder of the Big 12, this is one of the teams that we need to be able to
I think the one thing that has been fairly consistent with my comment is that in order to win the Big 12, you got to knock off whoever's been winning the Big 12. And over the history, at most times, Oklahoma's been there, and early Texas was there, and then they faded for a few years, but obviously now they're playing much better, and so they're in a position to compete for that title. So our goal each year is to win the Big 12 conference, because we feel like if you win the Big 12 conference, you have a chance to get to the next round. And so we want to try to take care of that first and then worry about the next. And in Texas, I would guess, is usually going to be in that race.
Do you happen to catch which team has the leading rusher in the country and the leading receiver in the country?
Well, I was told that this morning. I would have never caught it because I'm never anywhere where I would see that, but I was told this morning, yes.
What did that do for you? Just this week only? It's three
it's pretty
games
cool.
into this.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's. I guess one of you guys could research it. I don't know if that's ever happened before. To be into the, maybe it could have happened like week 1 or something, but once you get into the football season, which we're in week 3.5, I don't know that that's ever happened where you've had a leading rusher and then a leading receiver on the same team. Most offenses that, I should say outside of this league, most offenses over the history of college football had a rusher or a passer or a receiver. And I don't know that there's ever been anybody this far in the season have the leader in both categories. So it's probably pretty unique.
Spencer didn't run as much early against Tulsa. Is that by design, or is that another one of those things where the defense kind of determined it?
Yeah, they had guys in the alley, and after we had some success rushing the ball, they went to an extra guy also, played man coverage, and so really you're a man short rushing the football, even with the quarterback.
Mike, another old narrative was when you guys had trouble winning on the road, and that's not been an issue for a long time, and that's manifested in Austin. You've won 5 in a row down there, only team to ever do that. What does that say about the program? Go to a place like Austin and win 5 in a row.
Well, we're proud of that. We all know this. There's certain programs that you look across the country and people recognize the name, and that's one of them. And so that's a great accomplishment for the organization and the guys that were here before, and that we can compete with teams that essentially get their pick in recruiting and fluctuate on annual budget of $235 million. So it's good for us, but we don't see him as any different than anybody else. We have respect for him, just like we do other teams we play. We're going to put our game plans in all three phases. We're going to get as much work done as we can. We're going to try to keep them as fresh as possible. And then we're going to go turn them loose on Saturday night and tell them to have fun, go play hard, and compete. And I know they will. I'm not concerned about that one bit with these guys. They'll go play.
In general, it seems like in recent years you play better on the road than you used to. And is that
Sometimes better than we play at home.
Right.
I don't know why.
Is that a sign of maturation in the program, or not just?
Well, I think it's more difficult to play on the road. I think we would all agree with that. Why at times that we've played better, that's been brought up the last few years in this meeting. I don't. If I knew, I would try to fix the issue at home and leave the one on the road the same. So I wish I had an answer for you in that, and I've thought about that a lot of times, laying in bed before I went to sleep, and I'm guessing the only thing I can come up with is maybe they focus better on the road when they know it's basically the 70 we travel with against everybody in the stadium. That's the only thing I can come up with, and then they relax at home. So I guess that's one of those conversations, or if you had answers, you'd change it. But we have been fortunate over the last few years, yes.
Looks like you might need to try an Ambien.
Ambien? I double on Ambien. You do them 10 milligrams? I do 10 milligrams during the season.
Helps you sleep, huh?
I think so. I don't remember. I don't take them in the off season, but I take them in the season. My mind spins a little bit during the season.
Mike, you expecting air conditioning in the locker room?
I don't know. You know, somebody sent me that a week ago. I mean, they have a nice facility. I mean, we've never had problems with air. You know, Chris Del Conte, the athletic director, is a pretty squared away guy. I can't imagine he would ever do that, but I would say that they'll probably have air conditioning in there.
Bring fans just in case?
No. We don't have room on the truck.
Mike, did Texas ever call you looking for a head coach the last 6 years?
No, never called me.
Did they call someone representing you?
Gosh, I don't know. That I would have to run by them. Not that I know of.
Mike, what do you elevate in practice to go up against a top 12 team in the country when your non-conference opponents were Oregon State, McNeese, and Tulsa?
What do we do what now?
Like, what do you do in practice to elevate your performance going into such a high-powered game against Texas?
We do the same thing. We don't change the process. We haven't changed it in 10 years. We're creatures of habit when it comes to the things that we do. The only adjustments we made this year were ways to make us a more disciplined team. Doesn't really have anything to do with what you're commenting on. That's the only adjustments we made this year, but our preparation has been the same for 10, 12 years.
So no horns down penalties?
Any what?
Any horns down penalties for you guys?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, so there's a thing in the Big 12 this year, the big controversy.
No, yeah, I don't. We're not into all that. I'd rather just score touchdowns and celebrate together. I'd forgot what you were talking about. Yeah, no, that's hopefully our guys aren't involved in all that.
So the players, though, when you're playing McNeese or you're playing Tulsa, they know the difference when they're going on the road in the Big 12 and it's the opening week in conference play and it's the Texas Longhorns, don't they? I mean, they get a little more excited.
They do. I mean, I'm guessing they do. I told the staff that we just need to do a good job with our game plans and get ready. That motivation should take care of itself.
You don't have to talk them down or anything like that, tamp them down.
I'm not good at that. I mean, I just, somebody said something about Jeff Monken's speech against Michigan. I'm just not. That's not really who I am. I wish I could do that, but we just go practice and get ready to play. And I think what you're saying is correct. I think that they know, and it should self-motivate. And then if they don't, for whoever we play, we would like them to be the same all the time. But I don't think there's any way that you could convince anybody that watches college football that teams stay up here the whole time. They float. Why that happens, I don't know.
On Flip side, though, you don't want them to get too amped up too quick or too early in the week, right? I mean,
That's right.
how do you avoid that?
Yeah, I tell them the same thing every day. I mean, the same answer I just gave earlier. I do the same things all the time, and I say the same things every day, and try to eliminate that. So, it's like, we have it at the hotel 3 hours before we go to the game. I meet with the team for 30 minutes. I can't give my best Vince Lombardi, Knute Rockne speech then. There's 3 hours from playing. So I don't do a lot of that. Sometimes maybe in the locker room for 30 seconds, but they got to go. They got to go play on their own. And so I've never really relied on much of that.
How much do you rely on your older players?
They do it. Yeah. We've got guys. We've had some vocal leaders on this team that have stepped up this year that help. And they need to do it. I mean, they're the ones playing. They're involved. I'm not out there. So they need to motivate themselves and generate that energy amongst themselves.
Any update on Calvin Bundage and his line?
All that's the same. It's like I said last week. I don't know if maybe you weren't here, but whenever he gets ready to get into serious enough practice, then I'll let everybody know. But he's still slowed with that back injury.
Red shirt. I know it's early. You think about things like that.
I wish I could tell you. He could come back in 10 days and be full speed. I mean, that's what I've been told. Or maybe a month. I'm not sure. Because it's not like there's a broken bone or it's not like there's a torn ligament. It's just a typical back issue.
Coach, you talked about getting to the bottom of the unsportsmanlike penalty in Tulsa. Did you ever find your answer?
The what now?
The unsportsmanlike penalty during the Tulsa game?
Well, it's he said, she said. I mean, so, and I don't know because it's not on tape. I wasn't able to find it on tape. It happened, both of them happened about 45 minutes after the play, so I couldn't find them on tape to find out evidence of who was guilty.
Do your Texans get more fired up for this game than your non-Texans?
Oh, guys on my team?
Yeah, guys.
It's I never asked them. I will say that I think that because they're playing in the state of Texas and all their buddies and people come and watch them play because they can get to the game pretty easy, I think that helps.
How many of your Texas kids, Mike, did Texas recruit generally?
Zero?
I mean, no, they did. They didn't offer Spencer. They didn't offer him. I mean, I don't know who got a letter, but you talking about offering?
I think you're right. Now, where's that fall in the motivation factor? When you talk about kids getting too excited to play Texas, they probably circle this game on the calendar.
I wish I knew. I wish I'd like to be able to say it's going to make them, come out with that attitude and all that, but this, the young people today are a little different. It's just different the way they motivate themselves and what they do. So I don't know if it's a factor at all.
It seems like it would play into that winning streak you have against them, the fact that guys are extra motivated to play against Texas.
I don't know.
Were you motivated to play against Oklahoma when you played?
I guess. I mean, that's been so long ago. I can't. I think I like to play every game. I mean, I didn't like if you and I went over here and pitched pennies on that wall. I didn't want you to win. So I would say yes. Can you pitch pennies? Okay. Well, maybe we'll do that. And once we retire, you and I can pitch pennies. Winner take all.
I just saw a quote from Coach Herman saying that he thinks his Texas team this season, their confidence level is as high as it's been. How do you think your team's confidence level compares to the other years you've been coaching?
He said his is the highest. Is that what you asked me?
He said that his team confidence level is as high as it's been. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about yours comparing to the other years you've been here?
That I've been here? I think we gain a little bit of confidence each week. I think a lot of that is individual. I would guess based on the maturity and the veteran team that he has with a quarterback that's in his third year that they have a lot of confidence and they've had a lot of success in the last year. With our guys, I think the ones that are mature and have experience are more confident in themselves. I think younger players and inexperienced players learn to gain confidence as they go. And I think anybody that tells you that there's a young player that's out there and he's in his second game and he's a really confident player, I think they haven't been around athletes very long. They can tell you that. It's not the way it is.
What do you think a win over Texas would do for your team's confidence going forward?
Make them feel pretty good. Make all of us feel pretty good. Then we'd have to get back down to earth to get ready to play the next one.
We talked about Sean debuting and what it's going to be like to go from the Ivy League to this level. But his 3 games so far have been Oregon State, which is sort of a relaxed atmosphere. Tulsa was not a big stadium. You had a great crowd and whatnot from McNeese, but it's also McNeese. All that changes Saturday night. I mean, it's 100,000 people and it's the Longhorns and all that. How do you think he'll adjust, and how have you felt about the way he's done, and how do you think he'll do Saturday night?
You know, it's interesting. He seems to be further along than other guys that I've had. You know, I kind of watched him, and I watched Yurcich because I think the first game that Yurcich was calling him, we played in Reliant. And so I was kind of watching him just to see, because I felt like, you know, that he was, you know, probably going into the New England Patriots Stadium, being from up in that part of the country. And it doesn't really faze Sean much. I think it did Mike more than it did Sean. I will say this. I think Sean was more mesmerized by the police escort for the buses. He thought that was pretty cool. Because I think, you know, where he had been, he was probably actually driving the bus with the players there. But he doesn't get caught up in a lot of that. And it's been interesting. And he's calm on game day so far. I mean, things have gone good. Maybe if we have a 4, 5, 6 series in a row where it's not as fun, maybe he'll change. But, I mean, you know how Monken was on game day. And you know how Fedora was on game day. And you know how Dana was on game day. And Yurcich is about half as excited as those guys. Sean's not really in that league. He's much more calm up to this point.
How would that manifest? Like a player, you can say, man, he kind of overthrows the receiver for your quarterback. If your coordinator is kind of juiced for the game, how would that manifest being nervous or whatever you're talking about? I mean,
Well, he's in the box.
Well, yeah, but I mean, would that show up in like play calling? How would you know if it's getting to him or whatever? I guess?
I can tell by listening on the headphones. The guys that have coached here before and called plays here, there's not enough machines to push beepers. Okay? And so I can hear them all, and I can tell real quick when it happens. They're all great coaches, but they have different ways. Up to this point, Sean's been pretty calm.
You mentioned in the past Taylor not being the kind of rah-rah leader and Spencer being more of that. How does Spencer balance that with also being as inexperienced as he is?
He's learning to do that. It's not easy. Again, this answer is very similar to what I gave earlier. Everybody has to be themselves, right? I can't come up here and be somebody I'm not. You guys have to be yourself. I think when you pretend to be something you're not, then people see you as artificial, and they won't follow you. It's the way it is. Same thing with him. So he's going to be who he is. We've told him that. We told Drew Brown, you got to be who you are. Same thing with Korn and Mason and all the rest of them. So, Spencer, this is who you are. This is your DNA. This is your genetic makeup. This is the way you are. This is the way you handle things. Now, we might try to temper him one way or the other, but for the most part, he has to learn to handle issues that can happen in a game. I mean, he make a mistake and then make another mistake. What's he going to do? Probably not going to be very happy, but he has to be able to control his emotions to get on the sideline, get the information, make the corrections, put a plan in place, get back out on the field and function. And so it's a learning process. It's no different than what we talked about with Mason in Pittsburgh. And he's going to go through that again, and you would think, well, he wouldn't, but it will. He's playing in the NFL. I mean, so his emotions are going through the roof. If he continues to play, if Spencer continues to play, 10 games from now, they'll be different just based on what we do. It's just like the first time you came in here, you're probably better at it now than you were because you're more relaxed. So I think it's the same at playing the quarterback position.
Spencer a lot reacting verbally during the broadcast. You could hear him over the PA, and when there was a referee standing next to him with the mic on, you could hear him a lot. Was he mad at himself mostly, I'm guessing? Was he mad at teammate for not?
I'm unaware of that. You heard it in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Handful of times.
I didn't know that, and I didn't know what was said. So if I knew what was said, I would be able to tell you who he was mad at. But he needs to stay away from the referees when that mic's on. But I didn't know that. It's the first I heard of that.
Mike, you got a big play offense through the games. Does that go back to what you're talking about in terms of what the defense dictates, and it's boom or bust, or is that just a reflection of the kind of talent you have? Or?
I think both of what you said is true. Both things. I mean, we want big plays. We're going to be aggressive. We want a gunslinger approach. We want to chunk it down the field. We want to try to set things up to where we get big plays with our tailbacks. Doesn't always work. I mean, maybe we're inexperienced or not as good at certain positions on some years. Most years we've been pretty good at it, worked at it. But more of that, Barry, is dictated by the defense, the way defenses play. And they're set up and what they're willing to give you if you can take it from them, and what they're saying that we're going to at least try to take away and not give you. And you're seeing that evolution on defense in this league right now with the way people are playing. They're trying to eliminate the big plays based on the teams in this league that can get big plays.
Anything else, Coach?
All right, thanks.